Okay, today we're going to make some Turkish water Borek. It's basically a pastry, but instead of using like filo pastry or puff pastry, this is called yufka. It's kind of like a Turkish version. It's a little bit thicker than filo pastry. I got this at the Middle East market, but if you don't have that, you can either use filo pastry or you can make it from scratch. I'm going to use onions, parsley. I'm going to grate up some white cheese, which I got from the Middle East market, and some feta cheese. Okay, so I'm using about 1 cup of white cheese, cup of feta cheese, maybe half an onion and some parsley chopped up. Here I have 4 eggs and 1/3 of a cup of olive oil mixed together. This is my yufka. I accidentally bent it when it was still frozen and it broke in half, but never mind, we can still use it. I just kind of overlapped it. So once it's thawed, I'll make sure it's thawed out. I'll put 2 pieces like this. I'm going to brush it with some egg yolk here. Now you can use a pastry brush if you want, or you can go cheap. You can buy a paintbrush for like $1 from Home Depot, which is what I did. Okay, once we get that on, I'll show you how to roll the filling up. And for the unused yufka, temporarily put a wet towel on top of a damp towel so it doesn't dry out. As it turns out, I have some extra yufka and egg mixture as well, so I could have used more cheese or just cut down on the eggs, maybe like 3 eggs and 1/4 cup of oil. Next thing we're going to do is, this is how it looks all coiled up in the pan. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill it with water to cover all the Borek and let it sit for 5 minutes and squeeze out the excess water. Now you might be wondering, gee, if we're having a water shortage at Costco, what do I do if they have no bottled water? And no problem, I just use tap water. Okay, so as you can see, I put egg mixture over the whole thing, and then I put a layer of the cheese and parsley here. Don't put too much on, otherwise you won't be able to roll it up very much. So you just carefully roll it. Second, and then actually once we roll it together, this is the cool part, I put a couple tablespoons of olive oil in here. We're just going to coil this up like this, put it in the pan, and then we're going to continue with other rolls of yufka until the whole pan is full. So I put water so it covers it. I'm going to put a plate on the top, let it soak in. So I'm going to let that sit for 5 minutes, then drain the excess water off, and then I'm going to fry it on the stove for 15 minutes. Okay, next thing we're going to do is a little tricky bit, but don't be afraid, you can do it. We're going to put a plate on top of this, we're going to flip the whole thing over, and then slide it back into the pan and cook it for 10 more minutes. I'll see if I can get a better view for you here. Okay, let's go for it. See, it still looks raw on the top, but we're going to put the plate on here, going to flip it over, like so, slide it back into the pan, and we're going to cook it for 10 more minutes. And 10 minutes later, here we have it. Look at that cheese melting in that pastry. This stuff is so good, and altogether it took me like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes to make. Really good, try it.